Hello, dreamers, and welcome to a new episode of Reflections with an Accent. My name is Kike Calvo, photographer and entrepreneur, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Greg McGruder. How are you, Greg?
I am wonderful today.
Thank you for taking the time to be on this series. It is a real honor to have you here. And you've been with National Geographic since 1987. So I just want to start with a very serious question for you. Would you be willing to share a song with us right now?
Well, you jumped right into it, did you
Well, you
not?
told me you like to be surprised, so here we go. I reverse the order.
Well, yes, and just to kind of set it up, in my other life outside of National Geographic, I'm a singer and a performer, and a lot of the music I sing is traditional African American music. I've been performing with this group, Washington Rebels Jubilee Voices, for about 15 years, and so. The song that I think I want to share with you, that I will share with you, is a song called Bring Me a Little Water, Sylvie. Now, this is a song that was written by the great blues guitarist Leadbelly. And it is said that he wrote it because in reflection of his brother and his brother's wife, Sylvie. So his brother Bob would be in the field plowing, and he'd be calling Sylvie for water, to bring him some water because he was thirsty. So the song goes like this. Bring me little water, Sylvie. Bring me little water now. Bring me little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Can't you hear me calling you? Can't you hear me now? I'll bring you a little water every little once in a while. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Bring it in a bucket now. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Oh, bring me little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Every little once in a while.
Wow, that's beautiful. I knew you were not gonna disappoint me. So let's dive into something deeper. Let's start with a very simple yet profound question. Why, Greg?
Why? I'm going to take that question very broadly. Why do I do what I do? Uh, and I guess that's the first thing. I'm a performer, but as you said, I been at National Geographic since 1987, just marked my 37th year here. And people ask, well, oh my goodness, that's a long time. And I will say it has been a lot of fun. Every day you are learning new things, but at the end of the day, it goes back to National Geographic's motto. We believe in the power of science, exploration, storytelling, and education to improve and preserve the wonders of the world. So it is a pleasure to me to have been a part of that for 37 years in so many different ways. I've had a number of different jobs since I started at National Geographic. So that's one why.
All right, great answer. And what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned in your career? I know this is a very complex question, uh, but what do you think it would be?
Well, I think the biggest lesson in my career, and it's not complex. It's a question that I get asked a lot by my colleagues, new colleagues, and well, how has it been that you've been at National Geographic for so long? And some of it is just these personal uh, goals that you set out for yourself, and one is just to be kind, be courageous, and always look to the light, meaning you're looking for positive things in everything that you do. And, it's kind of like my self my guiding principles for myself.
That's a beautiful answer, and I think the outcome of many careers are really connected with the individual and not only their professional background, right? And as you know, we're all the same yet different. So, what advice would you have for introverts to help them feel more comfortable when they speak in front of others?
Well, that is a very interesting question. And so much of my career at National Geographic has been in producing programs in the last 7 years. And I said producing events on the stage. In the last 7 years, I've been able to coach some of our explorers in public speaking. And they have all different kinds of personalities. And uh, you have to listen and observe and realize that there's some people who are introverts. And I always say to my colleagues, everyone doesn't have to sing grand opera. There is room in the world for art song, for the quiet, reflective stories and moments. And we need to take advantage of that and encourage people, even if they are introverts, that they indeed have something valuable to share. I think part of the issue too, when you talk about public speaking, is that we've got more than 70% of the people in the world, introverts or not, who have a fear of public speaking, known as glossophobia. And the comedian Jerry Seinfeld says that if you go to any funeral, there are more people at that funeral who wish they were in the casket rather than giving the eulogy.
That's possibly true.
and
That
and that's something I share with everyone when I'm coaching, doing coaching session. And if I may, when I do these coaching sessions with a group of people, I'll share that story with them, and I will ask everyone to line up and sort themselves out according to who hates public speaking, who likes it. And so you start asking questions about what people's fears are. And so if you can understand those fears, you can tailor the session to address those fears.
how interesting, um, and how important is to tell good stories when we're publicly speaking.
Well, for a lot of good reasons, especially for our explorers, because it can get the work of what it is they do to a wider audience. And if you want to be crass about it, a good story is the thing that's going to sometimes give them some money. Someone hears that story, they're impressed by it, then, a donor may write a big check. Uh, being able to tell stories allows them to share their work to wider audiences. We have a program, NG Live, and this is a lecture series that I used to oversee. And we're on stages around the world from audiences as big as 2,500 people. And so eventually people become very skilled at telling their story, and they're able to reach audiences beyond academia if they are skilled at telling stories.
That's so interesting, and many people, myself included, were born in different countries, and as you have told, this is our second language. It's not our mother tongue. What advice do you have for turning these challenges into advantages, and how can we, us, incorporate our cultures and origins into our communication?
Well, it's so interesting that you ask that question because that's something we deal with all the time, just given the fact that we have such a diverse array of explorers. And we've got explorers for whom English is not their native language. But one thing I've noticed is invariably, if English is not your native language, people sometimes tend to speak softer. So my suggestion is always to speak more loudly. And if there is a word in the middle of your presentation that you don't know the English version of it, just say the word in your language, because 9 times out of 10, someone in the audience is going to know. Or you can just, you know, put yourself in the mercy of the audience, just call out, what's the word for this? And somebody will help you. But it's something that we're very cognizant of. I'm about to next week do an Explorers Festival in Latin America. This is in Peru, and that will be all in Spanish. So there will be simultaneous translations for the audience. And when we're presenting explorers on our main stage, we often encourage explorers to speak in their native language if that's more comfortable for them, because of technology now, we have the ability to let everyone have access to those foreign languages.
Yeah, absolutely. We're living in a different world, as you know, and we all know. How does understanding emotions help in public speaking, and how can we as speakers improve this skill?
Well, I think you have to make sure that the emotions that you share are going to propel the narrative. And when I'm coaching people in public speaking, I always tell them to think of their presentation like it's a Broadway show. So every element in a Broadway show is propelling the narrative. You've got music, you've got dancing, you've got set design, costume, you've got the dialogue, and all those sorts of things. But everything has to propel the narrative. But in this case, it's kind of acting. And so you're acting with your body, which conveys emotion. Your voice is going to convey the emotion, and you have to just make sure that whatever you do on stage is going to propel that narrative of what you're trying to say.
Yes, it's yeah. I that's what I realized myself, that it's not only the content but the emotions you make your audience experience through your presentation, like a roller coaster, and you take
Right.
them from happiness
Exactly.
to sadness, up and down, and then you grab them. Uh, so you told me before we started you like to be on your toes. So 5 minutes before the interview, I sent you a short sentence that hopefully you have in front of you. So
I
I'm
do.
gonna be asking you if you could read it to us, expressing each of the different emotions that I'm gonna tell you. So basically, I will say, okay, Greg, let's go with joy. So you're gonna read that sentence, and you need to convey that joy based on the sentence that I gave you, and we'll go through different emotions. So let's get started. So the first one is gonna be joy.
Do you want me to read the sentence first?
Yeah, sure, like plain, no emotion at all, please.
Okay. Embark on a culinary voyage to Spain with a plate of seafood paella, where the ocean's bounties dances delightfully with saffron-kissed rice under the Mediterranean sun. So joy is the emotion that you want me to reflect when I hear this sentence. And
Yeah,
one thing
I
that
like
you,
this kind of life experiment. So yeah, joy.
yeah, so one thing that you don't know is paella is one of my go-to dishes. Uh, I learned how to cook paella about 40 years ago. And whenever I'm having company and I want to just do something that I'm sure is going to make people be joyful, you serve paella and everybody is like, wow. You look at all the colors, all the flavors that are there, and just you're using a big paella dish. Well, there's nothing more joyful than people coming together eating around a big dish of colorful, tasty paella.
Wow, you surprised me there. So let me tell you something else you don't know. Paella is one of my favorite dishes. And a few years ago, I think a couple, 2 or 3, I think it was during the COVID, I connected with a childhood friend that he loves cooking. So we did a live show teaching people how to cook a real Spanish paella. So when we finish, I'll send you the link
I
because
would love to see
I
that.
gave the history of the paella, where it came from, what it means, how it should be done properly. As being a Spaniard and my friend being like a good cook. So we have something in common. But let's go
Yeah.
with the joy. How would you share your joy about that expression, that sentence?
Well, my joy would just be in serving it. You know, you cook paella. I mean, you cook paella and serve it. People are joyful. I mean, for one thing, they look at you, and my friends know that I can do a lot of stuff, but you know, it never ceases to amaze them that I cook paella. I've cooked paella on a barbecue grill once for people. I cook my partner is vegetarian, so when I cook paella, I always make vegetarian paella. And you may say, how do you do that? Well, you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what I would like you, if you can read the sentence that I gave you and put joy into reading the expression.
All right. The emotion of joy.
Yes, while you
Oh,
read. And then
oh,
I'm going to ask you for sadness.
okay. Embark on a culinary voyage to Spain with a plate of seafood paella, where the ocean's bounty dances delightfully with saffron kissed rice under the Mediterranean sun. Mwah!
Great. And if we were going to express sadness, how would you do that? Reading the same sentence.
Uh, Embark on this culinary voyage to Spain with a plate of seafood paella. Ugh, where the ocean's bounties dances delightfully with saffron-based rice under the Mediterranean sun. Oh, woe is me.
What about disgust?
Embark on a culinary voyage to Spain with a plate of seafood paella, where the ocean's bounties dances delightfully with saffron-based rice under the Mediterranean sun. Ha!
I'm loving this. I'm going to do one more and I won't bother you. What about nostalgia?
Oh, embark on a culinary voyage to Spain with a plate of seafood paella, where the ocean's bounties dances delightfully with saffron-kissed rice under the Mediterranean sun. Oh,
Let me tell you, Greg, this is what I love doing these interviews. I learn a lot, but yeah, I discover the humans behind the careers, and I find it.
you make everyone do this?
Well, different people have done different things. I have people. I had pianists perform what I read like an improvised story about
Mhm.
love. There's a whole bunch of things both in English and Spanish. But I go back to more serious stuff. So how do you help speakers deal with the stress and stage fear that you were referring to? Are there any simple tips or exercises that someone can use to feel more confident before giving a presentation?
Yes. Well, in asking people why they're fearful of speaking, you realize that often it's about preparation. So you help them prepare to be a good speaker. And so in my courses, I give them a set of tools that can help them, even if I'm not there. And I think that's another reason why people are afraid to speak in public, because they're never certain if they're doing the right thing. So I'm telling them what are the things that I've seen have been helpful. And I'm basing what I'm sharing on my many years of helping people speak, many years of seeing some great people speak. And so you want to give people tools so that they can look at someone speaking and analyze what they're doing and then borrow from that. Still be authentic and borrow from that. The other tool, a basic tool, is just breathing. Sometimes our fear overwhelms us when we are not breathing deeply and correctly. Your heart starts beating faster, you start sweating, then you lose your place. So breathe, and then also to slow down. Uh, for many people, the fallback response in fear when they're speaking is to go real fast so they can get over with. And I suggest that people slow down, they can make use of those long pauses and also gather their thoughts.
Wow, these are fantastic tips. So if you had to summarize, what are the common problems you've seen over the years? What you will highlight as challenges that are common when public speaking for the first time or when people are not very comfortable?
I would say the main thing is not preparing in advance. And, when I'm working with speakers about to go on stage, I say, tell me your story, what the story is that you want to tell. And so we'll have a conversation. Then I ask them to send us a script that will give us an idea of the story arc. And so when I'm coaching, I'm telling people there are so many different ways you can tell a story. You can just start from beginning to end, make it very expository, or there's this a technique. I'm talking about rhetoric called in media res, where you just jump right into the middle of all the action, and then you're unspooling it in the process of telling the story. Your story can be kind of like the classic Cinderella tale, where someone is succeeding in spite of what seems to be insurmountable circumstances. So there are all those basic ideas in telling the story. But, I just think you have to get it on paper. And that can be bullet points, a bare outline to figure out where you're going to go. What is going to be your path?
Wow, this is very interesting because I think you know that for the last 13 years, I've been on many Nat Geo and Lindblad ships as the photo expert. And I have a presentation actually that talks about all these techniques and the in-res and how can we use lessons from the writing world into photography and vice versa. So very interesting, but something completely different. What did you learn from your mother?
What did I learn from my mother? Well, I guess it kind of goes back to what I said earlier, those guiding principles in my life. Uh, be kind and to be courageous. Uh, and to look to the light, look for the positive side. I think all those things, I think so much of who we are now has been shaped by things that our parents taught us as children.
Very, very true. And this is a question that actually I have a project called Dreams of the World. So I record dreams all over the planet. So I would like to ask you, Greg, what is your dream?
My dream for the planet, and it's this dream is particularly frustrating in these days where there's so much anger in the world and people seem to want to be angry. And uh, my dream for the world is people are just kinder to one another, everybody, whether you know them or not. Just start from being kind instead of always assuming the worst in someone else.
Yes, and something else I'm gonna ask you because we have something else in common. I'm always smiling, and you're always smiling. So I want you to talk about whether it's doing presentations or in a professional environment, the power of smiling, the power of the energy that you're pushing towards the universe, and somehow how it comes back to us. Um, I learned that a long time ago. I apply it because I believe in the things that you're just describing, but I would like to hear your thoughts about the power of a smile.
Well, I believe strongly in the power of a smile. In fact, that's one of the tips I have in my presentation on public speaking.
And let me clarify, I have not been on one of those, sadly. So these are like
No,
questions that came to my mind. So
yeah, but a smile always helps. And again, you have to use it effectively and in the right place. But the thing is, it's always better if people see that you are pleasant to look at. Nobody wants to listen to somebody who's frowning. And I think what comes along with the smile is just a more approachable demeanor sometimes. And I think, throughout my career, that's one reason why I have been successful because of whether I'm smiling literally or I appear to be smiling. I think that's very valid and valuable to me
uh,
in my career.
absolutely, and it's a great answer. So, how would you describe music to someone who has never heard it before?
Well, I would describe music as a way that we express our emotions through sound. And that music this thing can express all the full range of the human emotions: anger, sadness, love, kindness, excitement, fright. But it can be done in a way that is understandable by a broad and universal audience.
Yeah, fantastic answer. And as a performer, how do you see the role of traditional music and the spoken word in preserving cultural heritage?
Well, I think the music and the spoken word are so key. Just having done this for the last 15 years, and this group I perform with, the Washington Rebels Jubilee Voices, we were founded when the United States started marking the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. Uh, and so after that anniversary was over, we have continued singing. And so this traditional African American music expresses so many emotions that often weren't recorded, at least not in writing. And so much of the music that we perform is from the Georgia Sea Islands, or the Sea Islands, South Carolina, Georgia. And we can trace these musical traditions directly to the west coast of Africa, because so many enslaved people who were brought to that region, it's a rice growing region, they were brought from rice growing regions of West Africa. And because of the isolation in that area, these were barrier islands. This music is so unique. And even though it's unique and very distinct, it is now part of the American musical fabric, and and also worldwide as well. But it tells a very unique story that could not probably, could be preserved in another way, but it's probably still with us, and preserved and known by so many people by way of the music.
And if it's not asking for too much, do you think you can sing us another song? I really enjoy hearing you. Maybe a song that is connected to your life, your childhood, something that is meaningful to you. Anything?
A song connected to my life and my childhood. Uh, oh my, that is hard.
Or any song that you feel confident to sing and is
Well,
it has a beautiful or a good meaning,
okay, well, one song that I frequently sing in other performances, and what's interesting, the first time I heard this song, it was at National Geographic, and when I was running the live events, we used to always do uh, Celtic concerts around St. Patrick's Day, or we did Celtic Christmas concerts. And there was a performer, Kathy Ryan, who did Irish music, and she did this song called "Here's to You," and it's a contemporary song, but it sounds like a traditional Irish lament. But it is a song of farewell, but a song of not farewell forever. So it goes like this: When first we met, complete awkward strangers, we did not know that we would be friends. And now it's come for to know forever our time will pass and we'll meet again. Oh, here's to you and our time together. I'll share with you a parting glass, and I'll bid adieu with some joy and laughter. Our time apart will be short and past.
Beautiful. I love the song, and the message is fantastic. You've been part of several music groups, if my research is correct. How has your background in music influenced your professional career, particularly when it comes to public speaking or being part of events?
So that's an interesting question because early on, I tried to keep the two things separate. But then I realized, if I'm singing on stage, that's kind of like storytelling. So much of what I learned in conveying the meaning of the story, these are tips that I can share with uh, people I'm coaching on stage. Or with, and also if you're performing music, you're worried about staging, which is something that you're always doing in doing a lecture presentation as well. So there's a lot of overlap. Again, we talked earlier about emotion. How are you going to express your emotion with this song? In the same way as how are you going to express your emotion when you're doing a presentation? And how do you do it so that it is appropriate to express a certain emotion? And again, going back to the Broadway model, is just in both instances, whatever you do has to support the narrative of your message.
Very, very interesting. And Greg, can you share an experience where a significant failure in your life turned into a great success?
Well, let's say there was one presentation. I don't even remember who it was, but my boss and I both thought that this presentation was so bad that we were both going to get fired. And we're standing in the auditorium at the end of this presentation, and people kept coming up to us saying, "This was the best thing you've ever done." And so kept saying that. And so we just started asking ourselves, well, are we stupid or what? And what you realize is that the standard way that we were thinking of a presentation isn't the only way that people can understand the story that needs to be done. And so uh, that's one goal of mine in doing what I do every day. How can we tell this story in a different way? Do we have to always follow this particular format? It's challenging when you ask that question, but people are very different and they like different things. So sometimes it's great to take advantage of all those differences in the presentation. So that's one thing I learned, from there's not one way to tell a story.
Yeah, like everything in life, right?
Right.
So this question might be a little bit difficult, but can you name three people who have significantly influenced your life?
Three people who have significantly influenced my life. I would say uh, my mother, my father, and I would say my partner, Riley.
And can you tell us why each of them? What is remarkable about each of those individuals in the sense of how did they shape your future, yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think with my parents, growing up in a family where there was a lot of love, and my parents are always adamant about taking us to museums, taking us to the theater. And, I remember uh, when I was young, I decided I wanted to do a puppet show at church. And my dad helped me make these puppets out of old socks. And what show did I do? I did a presentation of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And I think back to that now, it's like, God, how can he have done this? And he had a straight face when we were doing this. And my dad was a school teacher as well. But he's the one who made sure we were going to the art museum. He took art lessons and music lessons. And then I think, my mother was always there supporting us. We'd come home from school, she was there most of the time. And just, I talked about the kindness, but also I think both of them showed that part of being a responsible citizen was to think outside of yourself. So they volunteered a lot. They were in organizations. My mother volunteered for charitable organizations, and so it was that whole idea of giving. And you know, uh, the final person, my partner Riley, uh, has helped me look at the world in so many different ways. He is a Quaker, and so sometimes there's very small things that he says that kind of pull my chain about perhaps I need to change my way of thinking. Just the fact that so much of our daily language it's couched in warlike terms. When we say we're going to fight or we're going to spearhead this thing, and so it has just made me very cognizant of trying to not use violent images in my daily language or in what I'm doing on stage. Because frequently a presenter will give us a script and talk about something that they're doing in a warlike term, and it's like, do you need to say it this way? Perhaps there's a better way of saying it.
You
Uh,
know, sorry that I interrupt. That's so interesting. I think I shared that I have a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old that they inspire all my books. And yesterday, my daughter Pili, she used the term "I hate," and actually I told her we don't hate anything. You might have a perception and a feeling about it, but in this family we don't hate anything. We have to work on that feeling, and also on the way we use language to portray how we experience, because that has an impact in how goes into our brain and we see future experiences, right? So if you start
yeah,
saying I hate, I hate, I hate, it becomes part of who you are. And
right.
so I agree with your partner if it's connected with this type of comments, because it's very true. And let me ask you something else. National Geographic, it's an amazing space organization. Can you describe a few memorable moments you've experienced with people that we may know who they are? I don't want to give any names because I know you met many people that I know and others that I admire, but I'm sure you have some interesting personal experiences. Why don't you share with us some of them?
Well, I can share with you one that I was reminded of a couple days ago. So I think about 20 years ago, National Geographic magazine did a cover story on people who they called cultural treasures of the country. And these were an array of artists. And uh, two of the artists was blues group Cephas and Wiggins, blues guitarist, and the other person who was in that article was Michael Flatley, and the Irish step dancer. And at the end of this presentation, they were all on stage, and the blues guitarist is playing, and Michael Flatley is doing Irish step dancing to it. It was a wonderful evening. But what I remember is having dinner with Michael Flatley. And I said, okay, so you've won this award from the government for your excellence in art. So what do you plan on doing next? And he says, well, I have this idea to do a big show that features nothing but Irish step dancing. And all of us at that dinner go, yeah, right. Well, you know what that show was? He was predicting Riverdance and how
Uh-huh.
we were. So Riverdance was one of the most popular shows in the history of dance programs in the world. So
And,
so it was,
and let me tell you, if I'm not mistaken, in one of my Nat Geo trips to Cuba, we had, I think it was one of the producers or somebody very, very connected with River Dance.
yeah.
I don't remember the name. This was many years ago. But yeah, I remember that. I remember a conversation with the guy in Havana. Sorry that I interrupted.
No, 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 no. But I guess that kind of shows how ubiquitous it is. And I think the other thing too, I mean, you get to work with all of these people who are these legends. Bob Ballard, for instance, working with Bob, and I remember Bob and I were doing Bob was doing a series of lectures in San Francisco, and I was with them. And so we're driving around town. I had a rental car, and I'm driving, and Bob was navigating. And I said, and this was before GPS. He said, Bob, here, you take the map. And so like when I'm using a map, sometimes I have to flip it around to make sure it's oriented in the direction. And thought that cool people didn't have to do this. So Bob takes the map and flips it around. I said, "What? You do that?" He goes, "Yeah." So, it just shows, a very normal person, or getting to work with people like Jane Goodall, who is
That's interesting because I was gonna ask about her. Tell us something about her.
well, she's a wonderful storyteller, and I always hold her up as an example because if you've seen Jane lecture, you know that one thing she almost always does in her presentations, she does that chimpanzee call. And so this is something I encourage so many of the explorers to do, if they're working with an animal, because it's very important that you let people understand what this animal sounds like, how it feels, how big it is. And so, I've had people who have uttered uh, jaguar howls on stage, people who have uttered coyote calls on stage as a result. And what that does, it makes it memorable. You may not know that person's name, remember that person's name right away. But when we're talking about, oh, yeah, that was the guy who did the jaguar call, or, oh, remember him? He did the coyote call. And so, make use of that, like Jane does. So I had the opportunity in my other life. I'm on the board of the DC Environmental Film Festival, and we gave Jane Goodall the Environmental Champion Award about 3 years ago. And this was during COVID, so had the chance to do a chat with her, and it was one of the most fun things. So Jane was telling these stories that I had never heard before. So it was great to connect with her in that way on that stage.
So, do you have a particular call you use on some of your presentations you want to share with us? Have you chosen a particular species that you do on stage, or you don't do
That
that
I
part?
on stage, I don't do the. I mean, I don't work with any of the animals, but I
I'm
did have.
just I'm just teasing you, Greg. I'm just
But I
teasing.
tell you what, I did have one guy. He was a turtle researcher. So I said, "So do these turtles make a noise?" And he says, "No." And I said, "So if they did make a noise, what kind of noise do you think they'd make?" And he made a noise. So but
Very. No, I was
you're
gonna
just
say it's very
go
interesting.
ahead.
It's very interesting. And before my line of thought um, disappears, so one of the things the pandemic brought to my life is piano. I'm obsessed with learning piano. I wrote a song from scratch. I learned music theory just to write something. And funny enough, I'm obsessed with blues. And don't ask me why, because I didn't hear to any blues growing up. So I have a question. I'm learning blues on piano. So the question that I have for you, blues music, I believe, right, captures the spirit of struggle and resilience. How do you think the blues mirrors the complexities of the human emotion, and how does it continue to resonate in the future generations? Um, can you talk about blues?
Well,
Anything, any.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I think at one point in its early stages was considered as this other music, but it is now part of the American musical fabric, making its way from these smoky nightclubs to concert stages now. But I think it's been successful in that because of uh, the complexity of the music, also the emotions that can be expressed in the lyrics as well. And certainly there's traditional American blues, but you can look at Portugal with, to me, what is the equivalent of blues, fado music.
Yes,
The
actually,
same,
I love fado music. I'm glad you brought that up because it's really special.
and then you go to Spain and you have flamenco music. Everybody thinks of castanets and the percussive dancing, but you listen to a flamenco singer and it is the equivalent of blues. Music that expresses deep emotion. I think there's always room in this world, now and in the future, for music that expresses deep emotion.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know why I love it so much. So I practice every day, and I have a feeling it's connected to what you described. It allows me to express something for myself, and I'm a total beginner, but still I feel that
Yeah.
rhythm and the blues scale allows me to convey
Well,
something
I
that
think that,
goes through my veins late at
yeah.
night. That kind of thing.
But don't you think it's because the uh, kind of the structure of it has this regularity to it at
Yep.
its bottom, but
Yes.
then it allows you to put something else on top of it that makes it distinct and interesting with every song.
Absolutely. Actually, I find very interesting. It reminds me in a way some of the rhythms is not comparable that they're used in indigenous tribes that they have a constant thing repeating, and then there's room for improvisation.
Right, right,
And,
right,
and,
right.
and let me share a story with you connected with improvisation. So you don't know these things, but from Spain, my background is economics. I got a scholarship. I ended up at the University of Idaho before moving to New York City to be an intern at the photo unit in New York at the UN. But the
Mhm.
story is, I was hired as a student to photograph the behind the scenes of the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival.
Really?
My, yes. But the interesting thing is, I was with the top jazz performers, and I had no idea who they were. So now looking back, I photographed Lionel Hampton, Paquito de Rivera, Claudio Roditi, all these world
Oh,
players. I was with them for a week behind the scenes, and I was so naive that I had no idea who they were. Can you believe that?
Uh, well, I will say, speaking of jazz, one program that I used to do at National Geographic for NG Live was with Jazz at Lincoln Center and the State Department. And so they had a culture exchange program. The State Department, they would send these jazz groups abroad. And so when they came back or when they were going out for orientation, we would do a concert on our stage. And this was something that was supported by Jazz at Lincoln Center and so forth. When we did our final one, uh, Wynton Marsalis was even there.
Wow.
So, and I guess too, the State Department realized that jazz was a wonderful way to reflect cultural exchange, and particularly the culture of American music.
Absolutely, music is fantastic. It has brought so many things to my life. Being a beginner, so I'm glad to hear that you brought that musical aspect of your life into your professional career, because I think it enhances, all you do and all we do. And I know you're busy, and I don't want to take more of your time, even though I'm having a blast chatting with you. I hope we meet in person one day. And I see reflections with an accent as a time capsule, right? This is an educational thing that I do for myself. I'm not interested in algorithm growth. I just love doing this. So what key ideas or lessons would you like to share with future viewers? If we were encapsulating a couple of messages in here, plus a final song, what would you say, Greg?
Well, I guess it would go back to what I said earlier, just about the importance of being kind and being positive, uh, and just understanding too that, just to borrow from Stoic philosophy, you know, all of us are in charge of our destiny in sometimes a way we don't realize that we are. And that's what I would have to share.
And I always say, I don't know if you notice this, but I'm just letting you know, like, wherever I reach out to people, normally, all my communications, generally, they end up with never stop dreaming. All my videos, everything that I do, because I completely believe in that message, in the power of,
Mhm.
of that message. How would Greg McGruder express this concept in his own words? So I want two things from you, because this is our final. The first one, describe never stop dreaming, what it means to you. And the second, can you improvise some music singing never stop dreaming?
Well, what never stop dreaming means to me, again, is kind of looking beyond what's in front of you and seeing possibilities, looking for possibilities that aren't there, or just in general, dwelling in possibilities. I mean, to me, that's kind of the essence of dreaming.
And do you think you can improvise any melody uh, singing Never Stop Dreaming? Then you can just remove the words and just make it melodic with no words, but improvise with Never Stop
All right,
Dreaming.
let's roll with it. Dream, you should always dream. Everyone should dream, dream, dream. Dream, we all need to dream. We all need to dream, dream, dream. How's
That,
that?
that's awesome, Greg. And this brings us to the end. I knew you were gonna be uh, a great guest. I have enjoyed discovering parts of you that I didn't know, and I'm sure that other people probably will too. And I just want to thank you for taking the time. I know you have your life, your things, you're busy. So I really appreciate that you took the time to sit down with me and share yourself in this manner.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
All right then.
Bye.